So now we'll see how we can do this exercise. So I'll come to the airline segmentation. So this is the R code which I have written for the segmentation technique. So if you see, we have a data set with respect to airline cluster.c. So we have a data set where we are trying to, where we have the raw data set where we have data of, if you see, we have around 4,000 respondents and all the variables which we currently saw: qualifying miles, bonus transaction, flight miles, flight transaction, days since enrolled, how many days since the customer has enrolled for the frequent flyer. So this is my underlying data set, or the 4,000 customers data set which we were talking about. So we'll first read this data set where we would be placing, where we would be reading this data set into my RStudio program, which would be done by airlines is equal to read.c airline cluster.c. Then we'll see the summary of this airline. So with respect to summary, I'm trying to see what is the descriptive statistics with respect to each of the variables. So if you see, with respect to each of the variables, I'm seeing what is the minimum, first quartile, median, mean, third quartile. So this is the kind of descriptive statistics which I want to carry out with respect to the airline or the data set which I have. Next, I'm pre-processing this data set. The reason why I'm pre-processing is because I would like to understand. Sorry, there was some problem. So we'll continue with the exercise which we are looking. So I'm first reading my airline dataset, which is airline cluster.csv, which we saw the underlining dataset. Then we are trying to see the summary of airlines where with respect to descriptive statistics, I am trying to see for each of this parameter, what is my minimum value, the first quartile, median, mean value, and maximum value. So this is a descriptive analytics which we see. Now the next set of command which are running is set.c. This is basically used so that every time you run this exercise, you get the similar result, because I'm trying to set that set.c would, with a particular number, I'm trying to randomize the data, but I'm setting it to a particular number so that if you tomorrow go and run the same exercise, you'd get the similar result. So for that purpose, I'm putting set.c. Next, I'm trying to put a k-means clustering algorithm here, where I'm trying to cluster the data set which I have currently into 5 clusters. So if you see, there are the centers equal to 5, indicates that I want to categorize the entire data set into 5 clusters. And if I run this command, I'll be getting the k-means algorithm would run. And then if I plot this algorithm or the data frame which I have developed from this, I see that the result obtained is something like this. So we'll slowly go and interpret this result. So if you see, the k-means clustering with 5 clusters of sizes this were formed. So as we know that we have around 4,000 respondents. In cluster number 1, there are 106 customers, 22 in second, 1095 in third, 2336 in fourth, and 440 in five. And then what we get is, for each cluster we have what is the average value of balance, what is the average value of qualifying miles, what is the average of days since enroll. So based on these values, a cluster is formed, and you can see there are 5 clusters which are formed. And for each of this cluster, what is the average value of each parameter which we have considered in our dataset or building a model. Then we have for each record, or for each row or for each customer, what is the cluster in which they currently form. So if you see, we have answers from around, or we have 4,000 respondents. So for each of them, we have around, for each of the row, we have that answer where from 1 to 5 in which cluster that particular respondents fall. So if you see, from 1 to 5, we have different response like 4, 3, 5, etc. Then we see that what is the within cluster sum of squares by cluster. So this is nothing but an accuracy kind of matrix which is used, like how accurate has my clustering been performed. And then we have available components which you should usually ignore, which tells you like what were the components which were considered while developing this algorithm or running this algorithm. We have one more set of we have one more option of running clustering technique or using segmentic technique using hierarchical clustering. So this is one more technique where we cluster based on hierarchical clustering. So this is the commands which we would be using for hierarchical clustering, where we cluster based on hierarchical clustering, and then So the important difference between hierarchical and k-means is that in hierarchical clustering, it would automatically decide the number of ideal clusters it should form, or it should segment the total data set. And in k-means, you have to manually select or apply or decide the number of clusters you want from the data set. So this is a key difference between both of this technique and should be kept in mind. Now, if I plot the hierarchical clustering algorithm, it gives me a dendrogram. Now, dendrogram is nothing which helps you in deciding what should be my ideal number of customers. So if you see from this, the dendrogram would give you something around 5 cluster size, where based on the dendrogram you see I have selected k equal to 5, where I'm cutting this tree and then trying to see what are the number of clusters which I have obtained. Now, once the number of clusters are obtained for each of this algorithm, or using each of this algorithm, I can now tell that what customer falls into which segment or which cluster, and then accordingly devise strategy based on that. So if I to generalize it, say this is a kind of another clustering example which I have taken just to understand, just to make it very clear. Like suppose these are the four type of clusters or four type of customers which are currently formed. So if you see the x and y axis, it is about the y-axis is of the frequency of interaction and the x-axis is profitability. So in the first quadrant, we see that the cluster is formed is of golden customer. The second is problem customer, growth customer, and casual customer. So based on the frequency of interaction and profitability, I could categorize the number of customers into four quadrants or four clusters. Similarly, using this exercise, I would be able to categorize or segment a broad target group into a smaller group, and then accordingly devise strategy for each of the groups, so that each group feels a kind of specialization or feels that a message or offer is only personalized for him or her.